Okay, chapter 26, Great Depression. Starting out with looking at the 1920s optimism that came in, high standard of living. The U.S. has the highest standard of living anywhere else in the world. After 1929, despair will set in, factories will close, machines go silent, millions of people will lose their jobs, and people start to wander looking for jobs they're not going to find. 1928, there's restoring stock prices, attracting individual and corporate investment. People with excess cash invest in the stock market, and people put their savings on stocks. People are able to get more credit, which they were turning into stocks instead of investing and putting the money into factories or machinery to stimulate the economy. Corporations use their cash reserves to give money to brokers and to loan to investors as well. Stock market's going to crash, directly affecting 3 million people. Corporations were no longer able to loan capital for stock market purchases. Investors and bankers had to cut off credit to customers, which dries up the buying power, led to decline in sales. Businesses have to lay off their workers, and demand for consumer goods will decline. Layoffs cut back purchasing even more, so people buy even fewer things. Plants have to close, factories producing more goods than people can consume. And when people can't afford new products, not enough money had gone into the hands of the workers and consumers, and so everything is just going to be this cause and effect snowball that led to the Great Depression. Some of the causes of the Great Depression were over-speculation in the stock market, overspending, overinvesting, overproduction of goods, and also overproduction on farms. Banking problems, people calling in their credit debts and they can't pay them, losing faith in the banking system as they begin to withdraw their money at a fast rate. Everyone went to rush and to withdraw their money, and the banks run out of cash and call no loans. People don't bring in those loans, and so the banks have to close their doors, and people never get their savings that they had. Hardship is going to hit everybody. Men and women lived in lean-tos. Families go months without meat or vegetables, living on soup and beans. Middle class, however, is the one that's going to be hit the hardest. They don't know how to manage in these lesser conditions. It's a complete culture shock to them. The poverty class knew to stay in bed out of the cold, patch shoes with rubber from different tires, eat the discarded scraps of food, not to waste anything. Still, thousands of people are homeless, jobless. Many of them just keep on the move to escape the tragedy of their condition. They hop on freight cars. Up to 200,000 people would live in makeshift communities, all on the railroads and the railroad routes. A lot of them you can see in the different pictures. Unemployment, as you see in 1929, was really, really low. When stock market crashes, it will slowly increase up to its highest, which was almost 13 million by the time FDR became president. Hoover's solution initially to fighting the Depression, Republicans were trying to overcome the catastrophe. Kind of gives the Democrats the ability to regain some power. They don't really achieve full recovery till World War II. However, they will alleviate some of the stress, because when Hoover initially tries to find a solution, it's through voluntary action, private charity. He tried to rally the nation with optimism, blaming the Depression on foreign causes, European banks, rejecting any kind of big federal action, instead relying on people's voluntary cooperation to help each other out. Eventually does give some aid to farmers and bankers using the Federal Farm Board, loaning money, buying surplus crops to try to raise prices. Some federal programs for financial aid, like the Hoover Dam that started to be built. One of the things he resists is giving direct aid to the unemployed, also perceived as being indifferent to human suffering, when he orders the removal of the bonus army, the bonus expeditionary force. 20,000 World War I vets marching to D.C. to get their bonuses that they were supposed to be getting from the government, and Hoover says to get rid of the riffraff and the Reds. So General MacArthur goes out, uses bayonets, tear gas, and fire to get rid of them. It was known as the Battle of Anacostia Flats, and really hurt Hoover's image quite a bit. Banking crisis is really going to hurt him as well. Over 5,000 shut down by the time he was out of office, had gone bankrupt, people withdrawing their money, as we mentioned before. There's the acceleration of the bank failures. FDR comes in. He was born to wealth and privilege, and his whole attitude on life changes when he's crippled by polio. He refuses to give up, jumps right into politics, elected the governor of New York, very, very talented politician. He will kind of give him the appeal of overcoming suffering and odds by his condition. He defeats Hoover with the Farmer, Worker, Immigrant, Catholic Coalition or support group, and also black voters had switched from Republicans to Democrats for the first time. They'd always been Republican because they were the abolition party, and now you see a racial demographic shift in political parties. Eleanor Roosevelt, his wife, was also one of the most involved first ladies up to that point, really changing the first lady's role in society. First 100 days in office, unemployment was at 13 million, almost a fourth of the labor force. And so the banking system, he wants to save it from completely collapsing and declared a bank holiday for them all to close for 1 week. Bought them some financial time, or some time to kind of figure out what we needed to do. He called Congress into special session. First New Deal victory, putting the federal government's resources and support behind the banks. Gets on the radio, what it called his fireside chats. He'd encourage people to put their money back in the banks. Said the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, referring to the fear of spending, fear of banks. And so he just says, basically, trust us, put your money back in the bank, and that makes a huge difference. 15 major laws providing relief. The New Deal can be seen in 3 stages: relief and recovery, which are the immediate actions, and then reform, which is going to be the more long-term. The initial things known as his alphabet soup, all the acronyms, all the different agencies, TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, the CCA, Civilian Conservation Corps, WPA, Works Progress Administration, all of them working towards bringing in relief and aid right away. New Deal aims were to restore and reform, not nationalize the economy. They're not looking to completely rework everything, just to bring in immediate relief initially, and then to make sure that it never happens again. The NRA, National Recovery Administration, all of it was to try to help with ensuring labor workforce, no cutthroat competition, wanted to achieve economic advance through planning and cooperation, says no more yellow dog contracts, curbing child labor, codes to favor big business, unenforceable. He does establish maximum work hours, minimum wages, guaranteed collective bargaining by the unions. Minimum wages were not much, just above starvation levels, but at least there was a minimum. Agriculture Adjustment Act, farmers were paid to take their land out of cultivation, setting production limits. Government would act as a clearinghouse, and so that was going to lead to price increase. Land taken out of production led to smaller harvests, which meant raised prices. Sharecroppers, tenant farmers, not going to benefit from this. Smaller farmers really received little from the government, but both of these administrations were eventually found unconstitutional, as later on in FDR's presidency, people start to question and challenge some of his decisions. The Tennessee Valley Authority, building dams and waterways to prevent flooding. It's one of the more permanent reforms or programs that FDR is going to enact. Also provide electricity to the South, harnessing that water power to cultivate electricity. One of the things, Glass-Steagall Act, 1933, part of the New Deal, established the FDIC, which would ensure your deposit in the bank up to a certain amount of money. It is a long-lasting, I think currently it is up to $250,000 will be insured, but this is something to, again, just to long-term ensure people's confidence in the banks. Unlike Hoover, FDR was not opposed to giving federal aid to people, to the unemployed. Hired Henry Hopkins to place him in charge of the RFC to give direct aid to the unemployed. Authorized to give $500 million to the states to help families in need. Hopkins, in his first 2 hours at work, will spend over $5 million enabling people to stay off the breadlines through different programs and relief money. The Civilian Conservation Corps provided employment to young men mostly. They kind of live in camps like Boy Scouts, improve public facilities, clear land, plant trees, drain swamps, and they would earn money that would go back to their families. Work Progress Administration placed the unemployed on federal payroll. Hopkins was a huge advocate of work relief, considered himself colorblind. It didn't matter what race you were, you could get a job. And he wanted to put the jobless to work to encourage people and give them some self-respect back, to give them money to spend and put back into the economy. The WPA is going to spend about $5 billion in emergency relief. Hopkins didn't really even care what was getting done as long as people were getting money and self-respect at the same time. They tried to preserve artists, actors, writers with the Federal Theater Project as well. Programs, however, the big criticism was that it didn't spend enough money. The average wages were about $52 per month. Factories were still closed. Machines were still inactive because people didn't have enough money yet to buy consumer goods. Keynesian economics is kind of the economic theory of the time period. To improve the economy, the government needs to spend money, which is pretty much what they were doing throughout this whole time period. 1933 and 1934, there's going to be a focus on immediate problems, shift from relief to reform. They want to fight the depression, help the economy, respond to all the needs, but with the continuing depression, it's going to build pressure for more reforms as they're going to shift in 1935 to a permanent economic reform, things that will make sure to address it long term. Challenges to FDR and New Deal. Father Charles Coughlin, very anti-New Deal. Originally supported FDR, but now denounced it as a pagan deal. He continues to publicly criticize him until somebody comes up from higher up in the Catholic hierarchy and basically tells him to stop. Francis Townsend, the Townsend Plan, is where we get the inspiration for the Social Security Act, so that everyone over 60 should get $200 a month to be spent in 30 days. People saw this as a great cause, and so kind of starts the idea that maybe we should help out those that can't work for themselves. And Huey Long called for a redistribution of wealth by seizing private fortunes, kind of a Robin Hood idea. He said to seize any fortune over $5 million, and anybody who has over $1 million of fortune to levy 100% income tax. Yeah, he was assassinated. Did not last.